Well, we are in our second week of love, sex, and dating based on Andy Stanley's book of the same title. If you want to find out more about this and dig deeper, go to Amazon, pick up that book. You may wonder why we're even talking about this topic, especially when over half of our church is married. And here's why. We've talked to a lot of married people who have gone through a lot of things that they didn't expect. And many of the things that they experienced back when they were dating follow them in to their marriage. They have a hard time making sense of it. Expectations don't line up. And so we figured that, hey, let's go ahead and have some of these conversations. Hopefully, by the end of the series, if you're single, you won't be completely terrified of being married. If you're single right now, you could look at the institution of marriage and go, no thanks, not for me. Plenty of drama. I'm out. Like, you guys can keep that thing. Okay, hopefully we can focus on what it looks like to have a healthy marriage and be a healthy person. If you're divorced in this room, hopefully this series gives you some room to heal. Hopefully it would shed some light and make some sense of some things that happened in your marriage. And if you're married in this room, maybe it'll help you most of all if you examine yourself and identify patterns in your life that aren't helping you in your relationship. So, last week, Nick left you with this question. Are you who the person you're looking for is looking for? A lot of people are going into dating thinking, if I can just find the right person, everything is going to be all right. But they never stop to look at themselves and ask, hold on, am I the right person for the person that I'm looking for? So last week we talked about the right person myth. It's a myth. They're thinking if I find the right person, everything's going to be all right. And they run into a person who's thinking the exact same thing. They're not really thinking about their own relationship skills, what ticks them off, how to deal with it. If I find the right person, I'm not going to have to be patient because they'll never test me. I'm never going to have to worry about being kind because they will inspire the deepest level of kindness, right? Okay? It'll be easy. If I find the right person, the sex is going to be great right away. I'll have you figured out in a jiffy. Right? No. So these two people meet, and they have chemistry. They might not have the character down, but they have chemistry. Chemistry is sparks flying, love songs playing, rose petals falling from the ceiling. Love will get us through. I can't go 12 hours without talking to you. I can't go a minute without thinking about you. Right? It's perfect. Mom was like, run away from that dude. And you're like, Mom, you just don't understand. Dad was like, you got to be kidding me. Daddy, you don't understand how I feel. So these people move in together or they get married. And then all of a sudden, something happens. Okay? That chemistry that they had turns into a chemistry experiment and blows up. Because they had the chemistry, but they didn't have the character when they got into it. In the relationship counseling world, when the chemistry turns into a chemistry experiment and blows up, we call that a Frankenmarriage. A Frankenmarriage is what happens when the experiment goes bad. You see, people spend a year planning a wedding, but they spend a lifetime developing habits that will follow them into their marriage. These things apply to the other person, of course, but first they apply to you. They apply to me. One of the best things going into any relationship that we can have is self-awareness. If you go into your marriage thinking that the only person who has a problem or a bad habit, well, maybe you should examine yourself. So you can say, I can't date him because he's a compulsive spender. But it's really important to acknowledge that you have store cards in your purse right now, and you might not want to tell everybody about the balance on those. But Joel, it's 0% for 12 months. Like, it's okay. It's all right. Women and men, if you don't own your stuff, it'll own you. And it'll hold your significant others hostage while you think they're the only one with a problem. Isn't that nice? Today, we're going to have probably a tough conversation. I'm going to say some things that might offend you. If you have kids in the room here with you today, that you don't want them to hear things that you haven't talked to them about yet, some real world things that we need to address, then I would just encourage you to put them, hang with them out in the lobby, or put the earmuffs on them, let them listen to some music or something, because we're going to go after it. This platform is for, of course, directing people's attention to God, but you know what? This platform is also for addressing real things in culture, because there's a whole generation of people here alive right now who were told that sex is dirty and you need to save it for somebody you love. It's a dirty, filthy thing, but make sure to give it to somebody that you love. And there are all of these really confused people, so we have to talk about it. Martin Luther King Jr. showed us that the platform in the church is a great spot to talk about those things that our culture is dealing with right now. And we're grown-ups. We can deal with them. God is powerful over all of it, and he's not afraid of it. Okay? So, it's worth it to me. Any woman who's ticked at me for talking about their store cards the rest of the morning, you can just forgive me as the morning goes on, because I'm just going to spend the entire time talking to the guys. All right? And guys, you could be looking at me right now and be like, really, I'm going to listen to a dude with a man bun? Really? Oh, okay. All right, hotshot. Give it to me. I think you'll listen. I think you will. Funny story about the hair thing. So we got a German Shepherd puppy this week, and I've been spending every waking moment with him, socializing him, and making sure that he's a great dog. So on Wednesday, I go to pick up my kids from school and meet meet them at the sidewalk. I didn't anticipate that within a nanosecond of all those children seeing a puppy that we'd be surrounded by the entire elementary school, right? So I'm down there with the dog, and right away there's that one second grade girl who's just rattling off a bunch of facts about dogs. Did you know this and did you know that? And my head's kind of away from her or whatever, and I'm wearing a hat, and she says at one point, did you know that dogs' hearing is 10 times better than ours? And I look up at her, I go, yeah, isn't that cool? And she goes, oh my gosh, you're a boy. I thought you were a girl. I'm gonna cut it, okay? I will. Just looking for the right time. I've been growing it up for over a year. I've got an appointment actually with Jerry tomorrow, all right? So give me a little bit of grace. Back to the original point. 1 Corinthians 13:11 says, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, I acted like a child, but when I became an adult, I put away childish things. We grow up with fairy tales, and it always ends with the right people meeting each other, and the final line is what? And they lived. That's a childhood way of thinking about relationships. And it's not just about finding the right person, it's about being the right person too. So I want to talk to the guys about some ways that we can put away childish things. And it's not meant to pick on you guys, okay? I want it to inspire us to be men, to look at what Jesus said about how we should view women. And I'm going to talk about some ways we should treat women. Some of these things I say, as I said before, they might offend you. We're going to go deep, all right? So just kind of you don't have to tighten your seatbelt or anything, but let's just have an honest conversation, all right? It's worth it to do this. The truth will set you free, but first it'll tick you off, right? So when these ideas we're going to talk about today were first introduced, they were even more strange in the first century. In the first century, these ideas were introduced when women were actually a commodity. They weren't just viewed or treated like a commodity, which is where we are today in many ways. They actually were a commodity, bought, sold, treated like less than. Prostitution was legal and encouraged. Men in the Roman and Greek world owned slaves. The richer you were, the more slaves you owned, the more female slaves you owned, and you could do anything you wanted with the female slaves under your ownership, not limited to selling or killing her. No consequences for you. If you just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and you wanted to mistreat a woman and then kill her, okay? Out of guilt, no consequences at all. They were your slaves, you owned them. In the first century world, no one wanted female children. In the second and third century in Rome, Roman nobility, Roman upper class didn't even want children at all, okay? So these wealthy Romans could only have one wife, but they could have many mistresses because prostitution was legal. They used prostitution as birth control, okay? And then when they got older, got close to the end of their life, they'd adopt a responsible male to be the heir of their estate, all right? There were actually in two situations in second century Rome that bills were brought before the Senate to mandate marriage because nobody was getting married. Women had no status, women had no voice. Even women in wealthy households could just be a few steps below a slave, depending on the man she married. In Roman culture, it was just part of the deal. Women were a commodity. And into this world that's hard to imagine for us, especially if you're a man, some women here would say that they still feel like a commodity. Into this ancient world, Jesus spoke, and his disciple Peter spoke. And a well-known Roman politician named Paul spoke. And we might say, as we look at these things, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, I should definitely treat women the right way. In that world, this was completely countercultural. So Jesus started the whole thing. He got all these women and men together and said, okay, here's something new. Write this down. Get ready. Here we go. Love one another. I can imagine this guy in the back raises his hand, right? And he says, Jesus, just one quick, hold on. Even the women? Jesus, even the women. But they're women. Exactly, yes. Love one another. But Jesus, like we own them. No, actually you should love one another. Like romantically? No. Guy, but women are weak. Jesus would have said to that, you might be able to beat them in an arm wrestling match, but they're certainly not weak. Jesus goes on to say, I want you to love one another just as I have loved you. I want you to give equal care and concern and respect to women. By this, the world will know that you love me. Jesus said, by treating everybody in this way, by loving everyone regardless of their gender, race, status, the world will know that something new is happening. Men, you know what that means? It means that every woman you interact with on a daily basis, your wife, your daughter, the girl ringing you up at Dakota Mart, your mother-in-law, your wife's pesky sister, everybody, you treat them with this same care and concern and respect and love. Paul came along. He put it in context, and he said the same thing. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. This is all in the Bible. We read gave himself up as he died for the church. He certainly did, but we can also read it completely literally as Christ gave himself up, meaning he gave up selfishness. Hold on, you're saying that I need to give up selfishness for the women in my life? Yeah, that's what Paul is saying. And it's pretty countercultural because as a man, even today, being a man means that you take, you don't give. And once you take it, you hold on to it, you guard it, you protect and guard your territory. Single guys, this is what you're shooting for, though, is to give up selfishness, all right? You're going to have to start practicing now. You can't live like a slave owner in your dating life and then get married and expect to treat them with equality and love. Just can't do it, okay? We're going to talk more about that in a minute. Okay, then Peter comes along, the guy who spent all this time with Jesus. Peter one day walked up to a well and he saw Jesus sitting beside this woman at the well. She was a Samaritan woman. Samaritans in that day were completely hated by the Jews. Okay, completely hated. I don't know if we have two races that are more against each other, okay, right now. And that's hard to imagine in this world, but it was downright violent. Jews had a hard time even saying the word Samaritan, okay? So Jesus is there sitting down by this Samaritan woman, which you don't talk to women in the first place, all right? And he's drinking out of the same jar as her, okay? So he's getting Samaritan cooties from this woman, okay? Another time, Peter came up on an angry crowd of people. Jesus was in the center of the crowd. Angry mob. Jesus is there, kneeling down with this woman. This huge group of men wanted to beat her to death with rocks because she was caught in the act of adultery. All right? Note that the man wasn't spoken of at all in the story. Okay? Still do that today. Men are expected to philander. Okay? But that woman, she was asking for it. Jesus defended this woman, made an argument so strong that everyone just dropped their rocks and left. And Jesus looked around, lifted her up by the hand and said, "They don't condemn you, neither do I. Go and sin no more." So Peter, who's seen all this, writes these letters. I get goosebumps when I think about that. Writes letters to all these Christian men, Peter does, who, though Christians, still see women as a commodity. Peter says, husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wife and treat them with respect. Okay, singles, stick with me. Okay, I'm going to make a connection just a bit. Treat the women with respect. There's a word that's only used one time here, okay, in the whole Greek New Testament, which usually means that the author is trying to get a specific point across. And the direct translation is ascribe or assign honor. He also notes that men are very strong and that they should use that strength, they should leverage that power to benefit the woman. This was new territory, okay? This was a new idea. It's a new idea today. And we hit a boiling point this last year where women stood up and said, enough is enough. And some people turned it and said, well, this is just a bunch of feminists, like just making a big fuss. Actually, that's not true. They were women who, like men a lot, who were being abused by other men in their life, taken advantage of in the workplace, okay? Like it blew up. And gentlemen, we need to leverage our power and our strength for these women. We need to call it out. Do you know how many people in the workplace, how many men in the workplace who would never, ever make a pass at a woman in an inappropriate way, see it happening, and they say nothing about it? I challenge you, I dare you to say something about it. You have to go after it. Just everybody for just a moment. Just a deep breath. These are things that are happening in the world, and things that are happening here, okay, in our town every day. And who is responsible for changing culture? Christians are responsible for changing culture. How will we change it if we never talk about it? We can't be ready, fire, aim, okay? Can't do that. We have to be able to know what this is, all right? Single guys, the girls you're attracted to, the girls you're not attracted to, the girls that you're trying to figure out if you're attracted to, and maybe if you end up being attracted to them, you guys could have a good time, you could dump them and move on to something else. Those girls who are texting you and you won't text them back, your responsibility is to honor them and treat them with respect. Well, that's really countercultural. You don't know how crazy she is. You need to honor and treat her with respect and love and care. There is no way that the gravitational pull toward mistreating women will turn around unless you do something about it. This is the time in your life, single guys. If you really want to get married, if you really want to find companionship, this is the practice, okay? One more time, you can't live like a slave owner while you're single, then expect to flip a switch when you're married. So you're surrounded by men who are married, who would probably say, yeah, this is really hard to figure out. It's hard to find equality. It's hard to not be a jerk. But it's worth it. And there are plenty of men in this room who have figured it out, who have realized that giving up themselves for the other is just maybe one of the most beautiful things you can experience in your life. You got to start working at it now. Okay? So I want to talk to you specifically about renewing your mind. Okay? Again, if you have kids in the room, you don't want to hear us talk about some specific things, like things that men look at sometimes. Just encourage you to take them out. Okay? I warned you 3 times. So there are 2 practical ways we can address this. All right? What you choose to look at. My eyes are up here. Ladies, have you ever thought that? Okay? Yep. My eyes are up here. Guys, women know where you're looking. You might think that you snuck a peek, okay? But they know where you're looking. They know when you're having a conversation with them, engaged in a real conversation with them, and care about their humanhood instead of just wondering what's underneath their clothing. Okay? They know. Ladies, do you know? Yes. It's okay to say yes. You know. All right? So, I dare you today to start looking every woman you come in contact with in the eyeball. Look them in the eyes. Okay? You're going to see a human being. You're going to see a daughter. You're going to see somebody who was made by God, made in the image of God, just as you were. Okay? And you might actually find something more to women than maybe what you've been looking at. Okay? I believe in you guys. I really do. Okay? And their mouth isn't their eyes. Okay? It's a couple more inches up. All right? Just a little bit more. And it's going to change your life. I guarantee you. About 5 years ago, I purposed in my life, that's what I'm going to do. And my goal was, I am going to see every woman who's not my wife as my mother or my sister. And it changed everything. Okay? It changed everything for me. Like, I actually started experiencing this incredible deep level of relationships with people other than men, and it was in a non-threatening way, and it was pure, and it was good, and it was true, okay? It'll change your life, all right? That was easy, right? Well, at least he didn't talk about porn. Number 2. Here's the deal, okay? Porn isn't just something you do to blow off steam and enjoy God's creation. Every time you look at porn, you're at school. You might not know that you're at school, but you're at school, okay? And here's what that school teaches you. Lesson number 1, a real body isn't good enough. Guys, I thought about joking around and like having us all say that together, but I know that some women in here carry guns in their purse, so I'm like sparing you. Okay, lesson number 1. Okay, a real body isn't good enough. Lesson number 2, one body isn't good enough. Lesson 1, a real body isn't good enough. Lesson 2, one body isn't good enough. Lesson 3, this isn't going to surprise you. Your wife's body isn't good enough because she's a real woman. Okay, lesson number 1, a real body isn't good enough. 2, one body isn't good enough. 3, your wife's body isn't good enough. Okay? Yeah, but someday it probably will be. Like, I don't have a wife yet, but I mean, when I find the right person, like, it's going to be okay. That's not how it works. Okay? Men, if you're looking forward to an incredible romantic relationship with a woman, the best thing that you can do is log out of that school. The school sets you up for extraordinary disappointment. Not because of her, but because of you. Because it's been training you to see all women in a different way. Okay? Guys, you can say it doesn't hurt anybody. You can classify sin as sin is something that hurts other people. Okay? It does hurt people. It does. Okay? Just a couple facts about the pornography industry. Okay? The girls you're watching, the porn industry is infamous for abuse and the mistreatment of women. A girl who gets into porn is in that job for an average of 6 months, and then has to get out. The average life expectancy of a porn star is 37 years old, with the top causes being suicide, drug overdose, and health complications due to STDs. It's hurting somebody. It's hurting somebody. And this is from secular sources, okay, those statistics. Yeah, but if I quit, the industry is just going to keep going. That's like saying if I eat healthy, then other people are going to keep getting diabetes. All right? You can quit. You can stop. You don't have to put your seal of approval on it, okay, because there's nothing good about it. Women don't want to be doing that, despite what they act like in the video, okay? You know, for years, Christian institutions have been saying, stop looking at porn. It's bad for you, it's bad for you, it's bad for you. It wrecks marriages, it wrecks men, it wrecks other relationships, okay? It's a broader cultural issue. And then all of a sudden, after the broader culture said, oh, you guys are just a bunch of Puritan know-it-alls, you just stay out of our business, it's not hurting anybody. Secular research is showing that watching pornography actually rewires the brain. Chemically, it changes the brain. Research shows that it deadens the man's desire for real woman. And now they're saying, uh-oh, this destroys relationships. Uh-oh, this messes up men. Uh-oh, this is just maybe one of the worst possible things that a man can do for his own personal health. Because it leads us to view women as a commodity, and it deadens our desire, our God-given desire and ability to woo and nurture. It rewires us just to seek out just a little bit of comfort here or there, and not view a woman for who she really is. I know this is tough. Christian men, you're to love and honor women. All women. One of the best ways you can do that is to not look at this stuff. And I would even challenge you, if you say, oh, well, this is the devil making me do it. I wonder if we were just to, for a moment, okay, take the responsibility out of the devil's lap, okay, all right, and take the responsibility on ourselves. What if there is no powerful force leading you to do that? And what if all the control is up to you? What if you have the ability to do that? So many men who feel like they're in bondage to this thing, that literally the devil's reaching out of hell, making you like click next, okay? What if I told you that all the power is yours to do it and to not do it? Women, you might be sitting here completely mortified. I completely understand this is a really hard conversation to listen to. And I want to say this. And men, you could be completely upset because there are women in the room, okay? I get that. I've watched Christians, I've watched the church, I've watched church leaders tell women to get divorced because they caught their man looking at pornography. And I can't think of a more irresponsible, horrible bit of advice to give a woman who finds her husband looking at pornography. If you want somebody, if you want somebody to never recover, you take them out of their support system. It's pretty legalistic if you do that. If you want somebody to not recover, you put them in seclusion. You tell them they're broken, that they're not welcome, okay? And you tell them there's no hope. But I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of hope for men. There's a lot of hope for men. There are. I've seen countless men go, yeah, enough's enough. Especially after hearing the facts about these real girls and what they experience. I've watched men rise up and go, oh, well, okay, no more. I'm not going to do that anymore. Women aren't just a commodity. You with me? Yeah. Okay. Guys, I don't need to tell you how to be gentlemen, okay? But if you have a hard time being one, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, in your mind, imagine, and let's just do this together, okay? Imagine a woman that you have in your life that you have great respect for. You have the utmost respect for her, that she's inspiring and incredible, has shown you kindness, whether directly or indirectly. Maybe she's an author. She wrote a book that changed your life. Maybe it's your mother. Maybe it's your wife. Now just feel that. Just picture her face in your mind. And what do you feel? You're going to feel adoration and honor and love and respect just rise up in your heart. Okay? That right there, that thing is powerful. That's the element that's going to turn culture around. That element is the thing that's going to turn maybe your life around. If every woman that you look at, you can hold that, you can channel that love and that respect and that honor and that wonder. You can leverage your strength and your power and your authority that you have to promote them, every single woman you come in contact with. As Christians, this is what we're charged to do. It's what Jesus was about. Jesus spent time with prostitutes and never once took their services. Women who were used to, if they fell in love with somebody, they just knew what to do, right? Like, oh, wow, I've got a lot of practice. No, Jesus somehow even brought women who were trapped in that world into renewal and into knowing that they were loved and respected and cared for. Amen? Amen. That's what Jesus did. Jesus wasn't clean. He wasn't shiny. He didn't walk around in a white robe with a blue shawl. Okay? He walked around restoring relationships and telling us how we were to view women. Okay? Women, show us grace. We've had a long time, we've had generations of being conditioned to view you in a specific way. Culture isn't helping us out at all, and I'm sorry. Okay? For me, and I think for a lot of other men in this room, we would just want to say we're sorry. And that we want to try to be better, that we want to try to be loving and caring and kind. Single men, if you are hearing this, all right, you need to know that there are a ton of single women in this world who have given up, who think that all the good men are taken, that they just don't exist anymore, all right? There are some women who are still looking, but haven't been able to find anybody yet, okay? There's a whole bunch of incredible women who are really intently looking. And if you follow these things that I just laid out for you today, you will be in a very small percentage of extremely desirable men. Just saying. Let's pray. God, I know that this is a hard topic to cover. And I know we're not used to talking this honestly sometimes, especially as a mixed group. I feel like it's worth it, and I feel like you're not afraid of it. And I pray, God, that we won't be afraid of it. Give us the deep, deep desire to change the way that we think, to renew our minds, to see women in a different way, and to make up our minds to treat women in a different way. And God, for all of the women, I pray that you give them grace for us, that you, in the midst of a world that views them as a commodity, that God, that every woman here will know that she is special, that she is important, that she's more than how she's seen. And God, let us change culture, which is what you told us to do. In your name I pray. Amen.